Hello everyone. I am Arjun Sahani and I have been asked by the team Electech to record a brief session for you all regarding the rules of procedure that are generally used in a Model United Nations conference. The document that I'll be referring to is the UNA USA Rules of Procedure. The UNA USA Rules of Procedure are the ones that are conventionally used and have been conventionally used by MUN conferences all around the world and even in India, unless and until there is some or the other immune conference that uses their own made up rules. So I'll be starting from the very beginning. At the outset, when each and every member of the committee is seated, when the EB members are also seated, what happens is that the executive board members, be it the chairperson or any other member, they'll start a roll call. The purpose of a roll call is to basically ascertain who all are present in the committee and who all are not. Now, while being in a roll call, a delegate is given the opportunity to state either present or present and voting. Now, when a delegate says present, he or she essentially waives off the right to vote in the resolution process. And when a delegate says present and voting, he or she essentially retains the right to vote in the resolution process. So my recommendation is that, and what ideally should be done in an MUN conference, is that you should always say present and voting, unless and until you don't want to vote in the resolution process. So after the roll call has been taken, after it has been taken into account who all are present in the meeting and who all are absent and what is the status with regard to present and voting, what happens next is that the executive board members will call upon for a motion to set the agenda and to set the general speakers list. Now, in Indian MUN conferences and traditional MUN conferences, what happens is that the agenda is already predetermined by the executive board members or by the organizing committee. And the first motion is essentially for establishment of a general speakers list. Now, Rule 8 deals with setting up of a speakers list. So what happens is that once a motion for establishing a general speakers list is called, every delegate is given the opportunity to raise his or her placard to raise that motion for the purpose of tabling. So once a chairperson has selected a delegate to raise this particular motion, that delegate shall raise the motion to establish a general speakers list with specifying the time which each and every speaker will get. Now, this time ideally is 90 seconds, which includes 60 seconds for speaking and 30 seconds for answering questions, which is for taking points of information. Or this time can also be changed at the discretion of the EB members or if the delegates wish to do so. Now, once this motion has been raised, this motion has been tabled and passed, what happens is that the EB members move to the establishment of a general speakers list. They will call upon the committee people to give their names for the GSL. This can be done either by raising the placards or by sending in checks to the executive board members that we wish to speak in the general speakers list and we wish that our country's name be added to the general speakers list. Once a list has been made up, once a list has been established and it has stated what all speakers are speaking and in what order they are speaking, what happens next is that ideally 3 or 4 speakers first speak. So the first speaker comes, he speaks, the second speaker comes, he speaks, and so on and so forth. Now, when a speaker is speaking, he has 60 seconds to make the main speech, and then 30 seconds if he has chosen a 30 seconds. He has 30 seconds to answer the questions that have been raised by other delegates. Now, in the general speakers list, in a formal debate, this is also referred to as a formal debate. In a formal debate, each and every delegate who is not speaking in the GSL at that point in time when someone else is speaking is given the opportunity to raise 4 types of points: points of information, points of orders, points of personal privilege, and points of inquiry. Now, as you can see in this document, a point of personal privilege must refer to a matter of personal comfort, safety, or well-being of the members of the committee. Now, anyone who raises a point of personal privilege is only raising it because of some personal discomfort or because he or she wants to do something all in a personal level. And this has nothing to do with the committee per se, but only a matter of personal comfort or personal discomfort. So if an organizing committee member is not listening to you to turn off the AC, you can maybe raise a point of personal privilege asking the EB members to get the AC turned off. So now, yes, next is the point of order. Now, I believe that every one of us knows what a point of order is, but that information that we know is wrong. So when I was doing MUN, the point of order at that point in time was raised when a delegate, while making a speech, made a factually incorrect statement. So if I'm saying I am the delegate who's speaking and I'm saying that Israel and Syria are but one country, so another delegate can raise a point of order and state that the delegate is stating something factually incorrect, and this is the factually correct statement. This is how we have been taught what point of order is, but this is not what a point of order is. As you can see in rule number 15, a point of order must relate to the observance of rules of the committee or to by the way the chair is exercising his or her power. So a point of order is not raised to question a factually incorrect statement or to address a factually incorrect statement. It is raised solely with respect to the procedure that is not being followed, or if a chair member is exceeding his or her powers. So for example, if the general speaker's time to make his speech is 60 seconds and the person is taking 75 seconds and even the chair is not saying anything, at that point in time, you can raise a point of order. And this is what a point of order ideally is for, and not to show that the delegate has made certain factually incorrect statements and that you wish to correct it. This is not what a point of order is. This is, as has been highlighted in yellow, this is what the point of order is as per the UNA USA rules of procedure. The next point is point of information. Point of information can be exercised in two ways. One, by way of a chat. Second, by way of a verbal communication. Now, a point of information is basically a power to ask questions from other delegates. So if I'm making a speech, I am in the general speakers list and I'm making a speech, my 60 seconds have elapsed, then I have the power to have certain points of information regarding my speech. So I'll say that now I wish to have points of information regarding my speech, and points of information are nothing but the questions that I want to be faced with from other delegates. So the other delegates then have the opportunity to ask me questions and raise a point of information. A point of information can also be raised by way of chats. A delegate can write point of information at the top of a chat and send that chat to the executive board members, and then the executive board members mark that chat and then send that chat to the person concerned or the person to whom the point of information is directed. The last point is a point of inquiry. A point of inquiry is basically a clarification that the delegate seeks with regards to procedure or with regards to some substance of the committee. And this can be raised once a speaker has spoken his speech. So yeah, that is all about points. Also, if a delegate has spoken for 50 seconds, but the time there is 60 seconds for the speech, a delegate has also the opportunity to yield his time. Now, this can be done by yielding the time to another delegate. So supposedly the delegate of Israel has spoken for 50 seconds and then he wishes to yield his 10 seconds remaining time to the delegate of Syria. The delegate of Syria then, when he's making his speech, will have extra additional 10 seconds to make his or her speech. Another type of yield is yield to question, that for the remaining 10 seconds, the delegate wishes that the remaining 10 seconds be yielded to questions, 2 points of information, and those 10 seconds will be added to the remaining 30 seconds for the point of information. So in all, a delegate will have 40 seconds to address the points of information that have been raised. And then this is also an option, though I would not recommend this. This is also an option, just yield to the chair, that you wish to yield your time to the chair and you do not wish to speak anymore. So this is with respect to yielding of time. Also highlighted right of reply or right to reply. This is also referred to as right to reply. Now, right of reply or right to reply is only in cases when a delegate feels that there have been some insults made against him or her or the country, and he or she wishes to address that. As you can read here, the chair may recognize the right of reply only in instances of grave personal insult. rights of reply must be submitted in writing to the chair and may only be granted after speech is completed. Though I've seen that people in our Indian MUNs submit right of reply also through a verbal communication, but this rule states that they are to be specifically submitted in writing. Now, having gone through the points and the yielding information and right of reply, we move on to the element of caucuses. Now, when 4 to 5 speakers have made their speeches, the executive board members call for a motion with regards to the ending of the formal session of the debate and establishing of a caucus, be it a moderated caucus or be it an unmoderated caucus. So what happens is that delegates are given the opportunity to represent the motion of a moderated caucus or an unmoderated caucus. A moderated caucus is a formal speaking session, which is somewhat like the general speakers list, but has a certain specific issue that is being dealt with. So for example, if your agenda of the meeting is addressing transboundary harm in contemporary time, so your moderated caucus topic might be something specific like nuclear weapons and transboundary harm. So what happens at that point in time is a motion for a moderated caucus is raised. In the moderated caucus motion, the person who is raising the motion, the delegate who is raising the motion, also specifically clarifies for what time will the moderated caucus be there, for what time, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and how many speakers will be in the moderated caucus, and what time should each and every speaker get. So for example, a moderated caucus can be for 20 minutes and each speaker will get 60 seconds or 45 seconds. This is how a moderated caucus motion is made. And now the delegates may vote on it. The second type of motion that we may be raised with respect to caucuses is an unmoderated caucus session, which is basically an informal meeting among the members of the committee to discuss on certain issues, to discuss on what is to be done in the GSL, to discuss what is to be done in a moderated caucus, what topics are to be taken for a moderated caucus and all. And here in informal meetings, lobbies and etc. are also formed between the delegates with respect to their resolution processes and all. So by making a motion for a more unmoderated caucus as well, the delegate who is making the motion needs to specify the time for which the unmoderated caucus will be there. For example, 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 10 minutes, etc. Now, once each and every speaker on the general speaking list has spoken, all the caucuses have been elapsed, moderated or unmoderated, we move on to the process of resolution. Now, in this document, if you can see, introducing draft resolution. So we move on to the process of resolution. Once each and every, once the GSL has been established, what happens is the EB members will now call upon for the adjournment of meeting, and the adjournment of meeting will result into the going into the resolution process. Now, once this motion has been tabled, once this motion has been established, we go on into the resolution process, and you start to make and draft the resolutions that you thought of initially in the unmoderated caucus sessions with your lobby that you made, and then we have to introduce the draft resolutions before the committee. So supposedly there are 3 lobbies. Now 3 lobbies have drafted 3 resolutions and they have submitted these resolutions to the executive board members. Now these resolutions in the order that they have been submitted will be presented before the committee. The people who are presenting the draft resolution will be given the opportunity to address each and every point in the resolution, and also will be given the opportunity to take questions from other committee members so as to convince them that why their resolution is the one that needs to be voted upon and selected. Once each and every member of the lobby has, members of different lobbies have introduced their draft resolutions, have stated what all their draft resolutions contain, and have addressed each and every question, we move on to the process of voting of these draft resolutions. And when we go on to the voting process, each and every delegate is given 3 opportunities. The ones who have selected present and voting in the initial part of the proceedings where a roll call was called, they are given three opportunities: yes on the resolution, no on the resolution, or abstain. So abstain means that the delegate does not wish to vote at that point in time, and he wishes to abstain. He wishes to waive off his right to vote at that time. So once each and every delegate has exercised his or her right to say yes, no, or abstain, we move on to the calculation of how many votes are there. So a resolution can only pass, a draft resolution can only pass and be turned into a resolution if there are 51% votes. So if a committee has 100 members, 100 delegates, 100 countries, and a resolution has 51 votes, a draft resolution has 51 votes, that draft resolution turns into a resolution. And the moment it is turned into a resolution, the committee comes to an end. I believe this is all that I had to say with respect to procedure, because this is all what the UNA USA rules of procedure also state. These are the very basic ROPs that each and every MUN follows. So I guess that would be it. Thank you for watching the session. I believe that whatever I said made sense, and whatever I said will help you out in your future endeavors. Thank you so much, guys.